And what did you think when Gypsy Woman had a spoof on in living color? Wow, that was. What
Now
were your
I
thoughts
can
of that?
laugh. Now I can laugh. I'm a little mature now, but back then, nobody likes being made fun of. I had two little
Mm.
kids, and they had to go to school the next day and deal with that.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I see why everybody thought it was funny at the time. But I will say, my attorney, my accountant, they called me and said, "Congratulations, you're infamous," and we made like $100,000 more on it.
Oh wow. So you made money because they spoofed it. They had
They
to pay
spoofed
you.
it. They had to pay, and then people went out and bought the record. It was like
Wow.
free promotion, so you have to look at it in that angle.
And it
So
was interesting. I can imagine as a songwriter that might hurt because the spoof was mocking the lyrics.
yeah,
Say,
even if the living, 'cause people didn't realize I was talking about a real subject, something that was
yeah,
really important.
homelessness.
All they
Yeah.
heard was la da dee la da da. So of course that may have sounded silly, but once people started to listen, we actually put an extra label on the second pressing of Gypsy Woman that says she's homeless, so people could kind of focus on that as the title, as opposed to la da dee la da da. And I think people finally got that it was a message that I was trying to send, and it was a real meaning to the story.
Absolutely. So, of course, we all love 100% Pure Love, but I have to ask you, the late, great Michael K. Williams
Mm,
was in the video, and we all miss him. I interviewed him
yeah.
before. He was a great guy. What are your memories of working with Michael K. Williams, who
Uh,
was an incredible dancer?
yeah, Mike, I mean, we had just hung out just months before he passed. So he was always crazy. He always had my back. He was always supportive. He loved everything I wrote. Um, and he did the choreography. And we toured at least like 4 years together. And Mike would change the choreography every night at every show. I'm like, Mike, you can't keep changing the choreography. But he was always passionate, always full of life. He always, he enjoyed my fame more than I did, I think. So I wasn't surprised when, he went out and did his own thing. But, he's really missed because every time I come to New York, I would always hang out with him. So, like, to come now was a little strange to him not to be here.
Yeah, I can imagine. What do you think? What do you think happened with house music for it kind of just went off the radio, mainstream radio at a certain point? Do you think that, and I want to also say for a lot of those house songs in the 90s, you had black women vocalists as
Mm-hmm.
the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then something just shifted where they couldn't get the kind of access on
Yeah.
radio. What do you think happened?
Well, first thing what happened, hip hop came in. So hip
Mm,
hop came in, it came in strong. And once that came in, all the record labels dropped all the house acts, all the DJs, the house acts. And I guess it was just deemed it wasn't for radio anymore. I think, but luckily for us, Europe, that's when Europe took over. That's when they came in and they were still playing house music and it was on the radio, it was their pop music. So we got to go to Europe. But really, I think hip hop came in and just changed the whole landscape and there just really wasn't a place for us on radio anymore.
wow. So y'all would get play on quote unquote mainstream radio and urban radio, but when hip hop comes, there's no space for you.
Yeah, I don't think the two styles really match. And I think back then I had this discussion before. House music was associated with being gay, so it kind of got that branding, and I think some people didn't want to touch it. Being gay back in the '90s is not like it is now. So I think I've had conversations with people that they really think that was part of it too.
Wow.
Yeah,
And hip hop was so hyper masculine at the time
very
that if you
masculine.
have these songs that are really big in gay clubs, then
Yeah.
maybe it won't. But then what was interesting, Crystal, is that so in the mid to late 90s, all of these mainstream artists, they were having a house remix for all of
Hmm.
their songs. I can recall
Yeah.
Jodeci, Whitney.
Hmm.
They were having these house remixes, but yet the house artists were on the radio, but the mainstream artists had house remixes. Do
Because
I have that right?
House was still selling. You still had all of Europe. All of
Yeah.
Europe, they weren't going to play the mainstream. You go to Europe, they're playing the remix. The clubs, they want them played in the clubs because that's where everybody really was. So they had to have a mix that was for the clubs. So yes, I think what you're saying is house music just kind of went back underground because I think people were
Mm.
doing mixes. I mean, that's kind of how disco started, right? They were doing
Yeah.
mixes of these mainstream songs, and it just went back underground. And Europe is a large market, And I think even if you say today, if you look at the large house festivals and dance festivals, you kind of see why Beyonce did a song or why Drake did a song, because they're traveling around the world and they're seeing all these crowds out here out for house music and dance music. And, they want to get a part of that too. It's all, follow the money.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, what did you think of the with Beyonce's last album, Renaissance, that it really is a throwback to 90s
Mm.
house?
Oh, I loved. I was so I was so happy that she did it, and Drake. I love them both. I really love the track that she did. I love the album. I'm very thank. It's been very helpful for me in my career and a lot of us artists from the '90s. So it was
Yeah.
it was a blessing.
What can you take us back a little bit to the 90s of what it, although you're not a part of the LGBT community, you're a part of the sound of the LGBT community, and what it was like back then, what you saw for gay folks, for black gay folks, especially with the HIV/AIDS crisis.
Um, I recalled. I just remember. Like the first club was the Sound Factory here in New York,
Oh yeah,
and it
I've
was
been there before. Yeah,
sitting on
all
the
the day.
speakers with Junior Vasquez, and it
Yeah.
was such a community. It was new to me. I'm from actually South Jersey, Exit 3, so across the bridge.
Yes, yes.
um, and there was this community. These were people that were thrown out of their homes. They were looked down upon, and they had formed these communities, houses, and families with mothers and fathers, and they were taking care of each other. And these people had these big personalities, and they would just go to dance. This was before VIP sections and bars. You would just go in and it'd just be black walls and baby powder on the floor so you could
Baby
spin.
powder. That's right. So you could pop, dip, and spin. That's right.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was just such a family thing, and they would dress, and I remember them, they would back in the 90s. New York had all the fashions. They would take the racks up and down the streets, and I remember, some of the people stealing the clothes just to wear that night. I remember being in Sound Factory one night where the police came and raided, because I think they had stole like a rack of Versace. It was when they
Hmm.
were doing a ball and everything. But I do remember the feeling of family. That's the one thing when I first got to New York. I was very shy. I never fit in anywhere, and they kind of took me in. They kind of, taught me, like I said, they taught me how to do my makeup, how to perform, how to emote. I learned a lot from being in those houses and hanging around with those people. But um, it was really hard. Even when I did the gay prides, they used to throw stuff at us. And every year though, we would go down Fifth Avenue and we get people would be signs, "Go to hell, you're going to die."
Mm.
And finally it got down to one person with one sign. And I do these prides all the time now, and I call them festivals and parties. I got to remind them, there's a lot of people who fought to get to where you are to celebrate being gay. A lot of people died. A lot of people got stuff thrown at them, beat up, just to get to where you are now. So don't forget that. Just don't make this a big party, but make sure you keep that pride part in it, because a lot has transpired and a lot of people didn't make it. And I just want to remind people they stand on the shoulders of giants that came before them.
Can I ask you a question? I'm
Mhm.
curious to know. All those songs that you wrote, do you
Mhm.
have the publishing? Do you own those songs?
Yes, I do.
That's incredible.
Yes, I
That's
yes, I
amazing.
do. And it's coming up
Ha
on 30. I don't know if you know the business. After 35 years, your copyright reverts to you. So I only got a
wow.
couple more years left. I'm excited.
So wait, before you go, just from a business angle,
Mhm.
I know people that wrote songs and they just got a one-time check and that was it. From a business angle, as a young person,
Mhm.
how did you know I'm going to make sure I own this and make sure that I have the writing credits? How did you know that?
Yeah. Well, first that came from my father, who was a jazz musician. My family, my uncle too. He was an MSFB, and I think they got rode over a couple times. So I knew
Mm.
that part. And I went to Howard, and just so happened my roommate is
Hey,
an attorney now.
wow.
So when I hit, I was like, she was the first person I called. But yeah, there's a lot of copyright laws that people should know. Even just making sure your name is in the title is another check. So that featuring and that those two little symbols makes a difference.
Wow.
So do your homework. I would always put and not featuring if it was me.
Yes.
And there's several checks. There's more than publishing. There's PPL. There's royalties. There's performance checks. So people really should do their homework.
And 100% Pure Love has been in commercials.
Yes,
It's been
licensing.
it's everywhere. That is,
Thank
I mean,
God.
that's so wait. I'm sorry. Back to the middle and around again. I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
be
there
there
to
to
the
the
end.
end.
100%. That is a perfect hook. Did you know? Wait a minute. This is gonna transcend house. It's gonna transcend pop. It's gonna transcend R&B. I mean, how did
No.
that perfect hook come to you?
That one, that was the second. So that was the second album. I had a lot of pressure on me because people were calling me one hit wonder and all
Right,
that
right.
stuff. So I remember them sending me the track and I just fell in love with it. And the first hook was the beat goes boom. And I went to the studio and I sang it. They were like, "No, Miss Thing, go back. That is not going to work." And I just remember sitting there and just waiting for it to come. And I think I was thinking of, I think it was orange juice come out. 100, orange juice used to be 100% pure orange juice.
Oh wow.
Something like that. Something like that came to mind, and I was like, pure love. So, I don't know where the back in the middle came from, but it was.
And
I
did
think
and
I
did
was
the
thinking from the world and back again, like infinity symbol and stuff like that.
and did the label love it immediately? Did they know this is it? This is good.
Me and the label loved it. The producers weren't so sure, but me and the label loved it, so we just kept at it, and we knew we had the lead single for the album.
Wow, that's incredible. That's got you set for life. And listen, I wish I would have wrote a song back then. Damn it,
I'm like,
that's amazing.
and I'm like, thank God I wrote this song.